I'm donning the shades really for reasons of vanity. I've got two black eyes. I mean, it looks like I haven't slept for days, but that's not actually the case. I'm sleeping quite well currently. Yeah, it is difficult enough talking at the moment. I have to make a concerted effort to try and round my words because my jaw and face is so numb. The movement again of these damn things. But as you can imagine, I'm sure, at least, that I have a need to move on from, discussing, certainly debating these horrific things that I'm forced into living with. I know why they're there, and they're there to make it impossible for me to live an active life, or even a productive life. Prior to the inception of TI television, it wasn't always the case even then, but for reasonably long periods of time at least, I used to have my life immaculately organised. That's what I focused on. My flat was tidy, it was clean, because when I was able, I did that. So I was more comfortable. A form of getting some satisfaction in life, really. No, it wasn't enough, but that's difficult these days with the other pressures that I've inherited, really. And the pressure to produce, when you're unable, so, it's rehashing really, isn't it? It's rethinking. I've set a precedence now, so I can't just sit in front of a camera and bang it out, or I can. Some people would say, yes, you can. There's all sorts of reasons. All sorts of reasons why I don't just let fly, literally with everything I know, which I think is what's happening here, which is what I'm working towards. But, I don't want to be doing this purely for reasons of personal vengeance. I don't get off on that sort of thing, to be honest with you. It's negative. I'd rather move on from things and people in life, but I have no choice, absolutely no choice, other than to confront what's been done to me in any way I can. And one way I can do that is by confronting the people that have been involved in manipulating my life. Those that have gang-stalked me, basically. I had street theatre the other day. When I hit the tarmac, I've already spoken about this. But again, there are an awful lot of people, explaining the incidents which occur repetitively. Outrageous coincidences which go on and on and on. Yet each and every one of them, the phrase people use to deal with it, is plausible deniability. But it's been the case with me since I was a child. And I think that's where I've got to take things back to. Start at the very, very beginning. My earliest memories, and talk it through. I always intended to write a book, and would still love to. But just as I don't really read much these days, it's not because I don't have a desire to, it's because I'm concerned about my eyesight. I can still see well enough at distance, but it's deteriorated. That's what I mean about having to struggle to round some words. It's deteriorated, pretty rapidly. And currently I am actually hoping that other issues I've been getting are down to the swelling. I mean, this is quite violent, what these implants do, you know. It's evident as well when the back of my mouth's examined. You know, these things are attached to my skeleton and they're designed, you know, to inflict pain. I can literally feel where they're attached. I must be screwed in. Hey ho, anyway, let's crack on. Lost my train of thought somewhat. But yeah, telling my story. Because I went through school with this technology inside. That aside as well, you know, whilst I always knew there was something going on, but again, it's all designed, it's all hidden from you. It's all designed to be indistinguishable, I would say. But, as I said years ago now, it's also designed for you to figure it out when you get older. And as you figure it out, and you realise how helpless you are in combating what's been done to you, invariably, that's enough to drive somebody completely insane. And it's heartbreaking dealing with so many TIs, because I know and I understand that the system is designed to drive them into a psychosis, to justify what's being done to them. But these people are not psychotic to begin with. a psychotic episode is what it inevitably would drive any human being into. It does that, I repeat, by design. I don't actually see that that can happen to me. I'm too aware. I'm too familiar with the techniques used to adhere to them. You know, I'm not saying I'm immune. And that is another factor, yeah. My life is the way it is by design. I really do get advised off people on how to stay alive. And every day I generally walk out into an open space. Hence I have dogs. I saw them as somewhat of a necessary accessory when you live opposite a park. Something that will get me out and be life enhancing, which it is. However, yeah, like everything else, there's a negative side to that, because I'm tied to my flat too much, where I'm targeted, microwaved predominantly. And that's something else I've spoken about only to my doctor currently, but I'm surrounded by children, little children, small children, and whilst it's my flat that this stuff is being pumped into, you know, they're in the vicinity, and this stuff is seriously, seriously dangerous. Dangerous levels of microwave radiation that my neighbours' children are being exposed to. And I don't want to move, because it'll only start wherever I go again. I told him that. But put me somewhere where there's no children. So that's something that I'm going to raise with the council if and when we meet, because that's what's been requested officially. The implants attached to the backs of my upper jaws are bending backwards like this with real force. The soles of my feet, they're burning. I can feel the wire in there. My spine too. I needed to go for a walk big time earlier. And then the implants inside of me started moving around. And I was under the impression that my back was going to go, because they can do that. And I thought if I get too far away from home, I might get stuck. As for online, man, it's a bit draining at the moment. It's become a necessary evil, I suppose, but as I said, draining. You know, I'll repeat, Chronicles of a mind control target. That's the life and times of somebody whose entire existence, practically, maybe their entire existence, has been, you know, dealing with mind invasive technologies, has been being influenced by mind invasive technologies. And yet he still lives in a world which, by and large, is in absolute denial. And I'm tired and bored of going around in circles, read the basics of matters. It's proven now, and I'm not willing to open myself up to debating the issue directly with any monkey, because that's how people come across to me when I'm confronted by them, be it online or directly in life, that are in denial because For over 15 years I've known I'm implanted, and for nigh on 30 years prior to that at least, I've been dealing with its effects. So, put yourself in my position. What's the point in going round and round in circles? Other than that, sooner or later people are going to wake up. You know, there's potential. People in the know the information is going to come out. Just the unfortunate aspect of this is that once it does, it would seem that there'll be little or nothing that they'll be able to do about it. So, from that perspective, life's a bitch, knowing this, you know, knowing what's going on, and knowing that people are impotent with regards to ways and means to counter it. I better keep stopping this actually and not talk too long, because then I don't have too large files to bugger about with, do I? Yeah, how many of you all could deal readily with not only finding out you're implanted with technology from your head to your feet, which is also attached to your brain, but that has also been recording your life 24/7 throughout your years? You know, could you handle that? Well, I have. And what's important now is disclosure. We need to stop this abuse, these abuses. Smash this system. And the only way we can do that is to expose the slavers, basically, because this is a hidden form of slavery. The gang stalking, the manipulation that we're exploring here is only a factor, a component of a system, an entire overall system. It's RSA, ritual satanic abuse. And it's far more common than people know. And it's far more common than people know for targets to be set up in or by their family unit. These testimonies cannot be denied, particularly once they've all been compared. There are so many similarities. It would be statistically impossible for this not to be happening. Catch this take from Edwin Jones. His take on his oh-so or all-too familiar story.
Hello, TI family. I'm Edwin Jones from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I've never said what I'm going to say, either publicly or privately, on why my entire family became perps. First of all, I come from a very loose-knit family. It's a man-hating family. It's a jealous family. Secondly, it seems that the foundation of an effective conspiracy starts with one's immediate family. That marks the beginning of separation elsewhere. In my case, it was my mother, father, and brother. And once the police that I sued got them to do their bidding, the rest of the family, knownst or unbeknownst to them, just fell in line. Let's start with my mother. Mothers are the most believable of all family members. They are traditionally the backbone of the family. And once mothers are controlled, the rest of the family become dominoes. Add to that the participation of my father and brother, and who could question their motives? After all, it's natural to assume that they all can't be wrong, or they can't be lying. Now, my mother, unfortunately, was a perp waiting to happen because she never bonded with me, as she and my father were on bad terms, and she took that out on me as a child. The only time she spent with me was whipping me like a racehorse and talking to me like a stranger. She left home when I was 15 after I became oblivious to her physical and psychological torture. She was all the while going to church and pretending to be a Christian. Now, my father was no bargain. He spent all of his time working as a mechanic and chasing women. He had an answer for everything, and it usually was wrong. He even approached my first wife before her and I were married to have sex with him. He was also a perp waiting to happen. I got no ethical or moral foundation from him or my mother, and basically raised myself in seclusion and isolation. My mother was hateful and my father was stupid. Both claimed to be Christians. Both were churchgoers. And I learned about religious hypocrisy at a very early age. I also learned how to shut down my feelings along with the physical pain at an early age. Now, those negative attributes were indispensable in my graduating from college and getting a black belt in karate, but they were harmful to me in every other aspect of my life. Now, I had a brother who was 4 years older than me, but we were not close growing up. He preferred to run the streets until he dropped out of high school. Then he joined the Marine Corps. We were not close even after that. I sent myself off to college and got a black belt. I'm the only one on either side of the family to do so. But here's my family, though. I got no congratulations afterwards. Not one. So that is the basis of why my family was easy to flip on me and become perps. And if your family is like mine, you will be on your own. I will suggest a solution later at the end. But now, let's discuss how. Now, most people have a breaking point, no matter how strong and determined they are. And the police/government that I sued took what meant the most to my family, and then he manipulated them by it. I asked my mother during the initial part of the police fiasco why everyone was acting strangely and against me, and what happened to those same Christians who say they fear the Lord, not the devil. Her reply was, and I do quote, I remember it word for word. She said, "The way things are supposed to be is not the way things are." And she was ice cold when she said it. I knew I was in deep trouble. You see, my mother is heavily dependent on her disability check and doctors who have her highly dependent on life-saving drugs, and she did not want those things taken away. I asked my brother if somebody was promised to win the lottery if they set me up, and he let it slip that sometimes your kids can't get credit if you don't go along. My only so-called Christian brother worked with the police so his daughter could get financial credit. The mark of the beast. Now, up to this point, my mother and brother offered passive compliance. Now, my Christian father, a deacon, however, allowed the police to enter his home where I was sleeping and allowed the police to gas me while I was asleep so that they could go through my court papers and other things. They decided, I guess, to let me keep damaging discovery papers because I guess they figured I could not use them anyway. Also, my father had a garage built when I was a kid, and he worked on cars. And he didn't pay taxes on any of that money for 30 plus years. He was very good at what he did. And his customers included lawyers, doctors, and a judge. and I suspected he was threatened with jail time if he didn't cooperate. Now, perhaps the answer is also that the family decided that it's best to sacrifice me for the sake of the rest of the family. And like I said before, their resistance was mostly passive. They isolated me while probably telling the rest of the family that I needed help. And that's standard operating procedure. I don't see my granddaughter, who is 6. Me and his mother divorced when he was 3. She's a Christian and a retired school teacher. But after our divorce, she never encouraged him to be close to me, even though I potty trained him, taught him to read at 3, took him to work with me occasionally, took him to my karate classes, the YMCA, the boys club. I enrolled him into the Cub Scouts, taught him to ride a bicycle during the summers that I had custody. I also taught him to grow a garden. But during the most impressionable time of his preteen life, in the beginning of my conspiracy, she took him out of the racially mixed scout group that I had him enrolled in and put him into an all-black scout troop, where he became condescending, bored, and surrounded with nefarious ne'er-do-wells and other type of thugs. And she did this during the early part of his conspiracy, during the most impressionable time of his life, and she did it just to thwart me. And she's been a perp since 1990, right along with the rest of the family. She hated me more than she loved her own son. She made it easy for him to fail. I tried to make him earn and learn. And the result of that interference is that my son and I don't communicate. So be it. Now, I have no expectations of ever seeing my granddaughter again. But I write letters and send cards to her at least once a month at her last known address. All the letters are dated, scanned, copied, and numbered. My granddaughter and son are staying at my ex's house, who has a history of opening my son's mail. So I don't worry about whether or not she receives them. I only want to be able to produce those copies of those letters one day if she ever looks me up and asks me, "Where you been, Grandpa?" I intend to show her and tell her the whole truth. I won't make a deal with the devil in the meantime, not even to see my granddaughter. You see, my entire family has shown me that once you make a deal with the devil, they control you for the rest of your life. And I prefer to die on my feet than live on my knees like they do. And I pray that I won't change. Now, it's not easy being completely isolated, but a small part of that responsibility is mine. And I have learned a bit of patience and acceptance since attending Buddhist meditation sessions. That led me to the Hindu temple, and it led me to study philosophy on peace. And because of those two practices, I was able to go back to the Christian church and attend Bible study. And people, I swore I would never go back. You can never say never, right? Now, since I'm emptying my heart out to you, the only family member that I could ever trust was my grandmother on my father's side. She would not have let this go down like it did. She was tough, and she was a real Christian. She died in 1969, and I'm still not over her death. In conclusion, I was forced to abandon my entire system of beliefs without having anything to replace them. That's devastating. And that system was in 3 parts. Number 1, that blood is thicker than water. No. That Christians offer spiritual sanctuary. No. And that there is truth in government. Also no. This is what COINTEL PSYOPs are all about, the destabilization of the familiar. And very few people survive that while isolated. Does this all sound familiar to you, TI family? If it does, I hope I have helped you to understand and to deal with it. So be safe out there. The devil wants you dead.
This is ritual satanic abuse. This system, that is. And this system, being a state-run system, does dictate that we're living in a society controlled by Satanists. And does it not? Logic applied. The abuses that we are trying to expose and uncover, you know, it's not just those cases, my case. It's those that are yet to come, those that are yet to happen. Because if we don't expose cases in the here and now, this system is just going to continue. And more people. In fact, look, it is the bottom line, people. The system that's being put in place is an overall one to control all of us. That's you. 2. And having lived in this system all my life, worn this technology, yada yada yada, I can tell you that the system I'm referring to is worse than I'd imagine hell is. It's horrible, you know, having to relive matters. Any TI or RSA survivor will tell you that, you know, it's traumatic or triggering to revisit things. But, you know, they've not really left me much to get on with. By way of a life, that is. And if I do try and get on with it, well, they start kicking the crap out of me with technology. Do you know, it's just crystal clear to me now. All the time still, you know, things are still coming up in my mind that, you know, complete another part of the puzzle. It's so difficult knowing that so many people have died in such horrific circumstances, whilst people around them have been both facilitating their demise and profiting off of it. You know, this is murder, collectively. Sons of bitches, man. I tell you, when I've collared perps at times, they've been so cocky, generally speaking, in life. And then you put them in a situation where they're outside of their comfort zone and they haven't got all the backup. I've known them lose the power of speech. Hey, Mr. Malloy. They're not very brave when it comes to dealing with life on their own. No, they need all the other gang members on side. And it's very apparent, not only in my case, in so many others too, that I've now encountered and got to know and listen to. That there's paedophiles involved. particularly, of course, in the earlier years. Satanists seem to think that Satanism gives them the all clear. It's our religion. Rastafarians smoke reefer, we shag little children. I was about to say this ain't happening, but it fucking well is. My mother's a paedophile. I've known that since I was really young as well. Put it to one side, and no, I didn't. Didn't stop her trying though. I'm just like, what? What? And then I go through an adolescence and a teenage where she's doing everything she can to wreck my life. I think Ed puts it, made it easy for him to fail. Oh man, I can elaborate on this. Incredibly. What a horror show being brought up by such a foul, ridiculously foul person. And it was no accident. I was hardly ever at home when I was young. I was here, there and everywhere. I was like Joey Cole. So many people's houses I used to stay at. It was just so bad. But I lived in the countryside. I played football, I played rugby, and I kept busy. I was always out. I was fit as a fiddle. You've no idea how fit. But man, to grow up, and I won't say realise, have it confirmed, that this bunch of no-marks, these parasites, just cashed in on me, and thereafter did their absolute utmost to destroy me. And I know they're motivated by fear too, because they took the cash. They bought in to this system of abuse. Whatever privileges or rewards they received. I damn sure know some that are certainly going to regret receiving theirs. I just cannot understand why people, or how people can be so bad. I've come to terms with it, and I understand, you know, that they're all manipulated and motivated by fear too. Most of them haven't got a personal connection to you. I'm just doing my job, like. It's what I do. Man, the worm's got to turn. Genocide in your time. And in our next deep prog, we shall be shining a light on, well, a few things really. This, for instance. And Friday we're heading off to Highbury, I believe, Highbury Court, to attend Brian Harvey's initial hearing. I'm hoping to get there anyway. As you know, I've been struggling of late, but seem to be recovering. So I'm hoping to get there and do some filming and report back, and thereafter follow that story too. I'm sure everybody knows who Brian Harvey is. We haven't screened anything of his yet. I'm sure he won't object if we do put in a video or two. We're all activists. We're all fighting not only our cause, but a cause. It's always bigger than ours, isn't it? Always.